Hey, what's going on, you all? Welcome back to another video. Happy New Year, by the way. Let me go ahead and show you all a video, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
Here's another tip how to prevent divorce from a divorce attorney, and it is this. Your husband becomes your priority, and this goes for him too, and all other family members, his family, his parents, his siblings, your parents, your sibling, none of their opinions for how you run your marriage or your family matter. If you and your husband decide differently how you want to spend holidays, how you want to spend money, where you want your kids to go to school, everyone else's opinion does not matter. And the minute you start valuing like your parents or a sibling's opinion more than your spouse's, so much resentment is going to build. Especially never in front of those family members. You never take their side against your spouse in front of them. I promise you that's the quickest way to honestly kill your love. If you start prioritizing people above your spouse, their opinions, what they want you to do with your life, how they think you should be living, don't do it.
So y'all just saw that video, so let's go ahead and have a little conversation. Maybe I can help some of you out there out a little bit. So when you're married, or if you're in a committed relationship, especially if the two of you genuinely get along, you have to start paying attention to certain social patterns. There's a strange social appetite for watching married couples fight, whether you want to believe it or not. And it's strongest when others believe you might be happier or more stable or more at ease than they are. Because we don't live in a perfect world. And sometimes peace makes some people uncomfortable. So instead of just letting it be, letting you all be happy, they try to introduce some type of tension, right? So they don't necessarily do it directly. They will do it through comments that sound very, very casual. So you have to pay attention. They'll say things like, well, I see who wears the pants, or I see she let you out again. And the implication in that is that you're in some kind of prison and have been like temporarily set free, or that you need permission to be there. And what they're really hoping for is for you to respond with something like, my wife doesn't control me. You know what I mean? When you think about it for a second, how are you supposed to respond to that? Like, if you stay quiet, then it's awkward. And they know it's awkward. If you laugh, then they feel validated. And if you push back, then suddenly you're being too serious and they're just joking, And then there's those questions that people ask that route everything through your spouse. Like, if you gain weight, it becomes, well, what does your husband think? If you lose weight, then it's, oh, he must be happy now. Like, if you cut your hair, it's, well, what did your husband say? And when you really sit with that, it really doesn't make sense. Because think about it. If your haircut looks nice, why would someone need his opinion on it? And if it doesn't, why would they want to hear that either? You know what I mean? It's not about the hair. It's about watching how one spouse views the other. And seeing if they can pull out any type of insecurity, seeing if they can pull out some type of disagreement, some type of embarrassment, or any kind of tension. And this connects to something else that people like to twist, saying things like, let me check with my spouse, or let me let them know. In healthy relationships, keeping your spouse informed, it isn't control. Letting your spouse know before you spend money, before you go somewhere, it's just keeping them in the loop. And it's basic consideration. Yes, you do got those relationships out there where someone is genuinely being controlled. That does exist. But, that's not what I'm talking about in this, specific video. I'm talking about just being in alignment. And some people don't like seeing that kind of unity. So they mock it, or they'll frame it as some type of weakness. Sometimes, like, you can just barely sigh, and they'll ask what's wrong. You can feel the expectation in the room. Or like, let's say like you and your spouse arrive late somewhere, and someone will go, oh, I wonder what y'all were doing at home. Like, to suggest some type of intimacy, which is the reason why y'all were late, that, that's what y'all were doing. It puts your relationship on display without your consent. And people know what they're doing when they create shock. They really do. Like, for instance, you may go to someone's house to fix something, or just to talk, and they excuse themselves and come back wearing like, something quote unquote like more comfortable. And now you're standing there surprised, and you really don't want to say anything, because you've been caught off guard. And later people say, well, it just happened. And they don't know that the stage was really already set. You have to be aware when you're in a situation where the stage is being set before you even realize it. And another thing that matters is who you share personal things with. Not everyone you confide in wants your relationship to be successful. And sometimes there's that friend who's quietly comparing themselves to you. And over time, that comparison turns into this belief that, they would do better if they were in your place. And once again, it doesn't always show up loudly. Some people will notice when you choose not to post your spouse or your family online. And to get around that, they'll say things like, well, I'm sure you have a lovely family. Why wouldn't you post them? And it sounds like a compliment. But really, it's an invitation into, you allowing them into something private so that they can observe. And that's why, when you really look at it, sometimes a lot of internet couples, they're no longer together simply because they just put too much information about themselves out there online. Because, when people start making observations, they start making comments. And when they start making comments, then, there's that pressure to perform. And sometimes it's just better to not really share at all. And another rule that matters is, really not arguing with your spouse in front of people or not openly disagreeing, because there are people who become very attentive when tension starts. They can feel it. So the best thing to do is say, we'll talk about that later. Whether people want to admit it or not, like when you're with someone, people are always watching. Like they'll notice if you laugh at his joke, if he smiles at you, if he leans closer, or if he holds your hand. Like people notice dynamics. And from those dynamics, they form conclusions. That's why, before you two go out, you probably need to have a discussion on, what your shared expectations are when you're in public. And another thing to pay attention to is when people ask, you question in front of your spouse to see whose side you'll take. People also do that. And there are also situations where someone will ask you for something like a ride home. And if you just simply say no, I have something to do, I'm not going that direction, I'm sorry, they'll go ask your spouse instead. And you won't even know it happened. And when you walk to the car, you find that person sitting there after you clearly said no. And once again, intentional, because over time, people notice which partner is more likely to say yes. So they'll just adjust how they ask. And the next thing you know, the both of you are arguing over something somebody else did. One thing I notice is that if people can't create distance between you directly, sometimes they'll backdoor it. They'll go in another way. Like they'll go through your kids. Because when children talk, they really don't have no filter, and people know this. That's, questions that sound playful or harmless. And if that child starts sharing too much, some adults won't redirect the conversation. Now a responsible adult will. They'd be like, hey, let's not talk about that, or, don't share mommy and daddy's business. They'll say something like that. But children don't understand context. They don't know how their words can be repeated and how things travel. So you have to pay attention. When you're a couple, you have to pay attention to when you're around people who creates pressure, who tries to catch you off guard, who watches you a little bit too closely, who seems a little bit just too much energized by your discomfort, and who asks questions that really don't need answers. Because when you're aware, your awareness helps you move through spaces without being really pulled into these moments that you never really agreed to. So, I just want to put that out there, and y'all be safe and enjoy your new year, and I'll see you all in the next video.